I'm the executive director. I started in '89 as the transit manager for Kings Area Rural Transit. It's located in Hanford. It's made up of the 3 cities in the county of Hanford. Back when we just basically took seniors to work. About 1999, there was an accident in 5 Points where there were 13 farm workers killed. We were basically, at that time as a transit agency, trying to help out our transit agencies do transportation. That involves some farm labor work, but it wasn't to the fields. It was from Avenal to Paramount Farms, because as all you know, all we do is suck money from local agencies, and we don't help them in the transit vein. So this was a benefit to them. We were also trying to help a van pool group get started for Keenan Farms at the request of supervisor. That fell apart when the DOL sent me a cease and desist letter saying, how dare you try to do something that's illegal? We know you want to comply with the law, and here you are trying to go out there and run a van pool for farm workers, and you shouldn't be doing that. So that died before it even saw the light of day. With that background, 2001, there were a number of hearings Caltrans had that basically looked for some answers to the problem that was out there. I attended about 5 of those, kept raising my hand up saying, I'd like to start a van pool for farm workers because they really can't do that. At the end of the last hearing, somebody said, well, that guy in the back keeps raising his hand. Why don't you give him the grant? So I worked with Caltrans with some JARC funding and patrol violation funding. We started a farm worker van pool in 2001. In 2002, a worker going to Corcoran State Prison came to my board and said, could we start a van pool? Caltrans has taken our van pool away. Years past, Caltrans would give you a van pool, keep it for a while, you'd end up owning it. They bailed out of that, started giving employees $65 per month. So my board graciously said, Mrs. Bunn, you look like my grandmother, how could we dare not help you? And with that, we provided her a van pool with the caveat that they pay 100% of the cost of the operation, which she did, and that was the beginning of a van pool project. It was started with 1 van pool. With that, we're off and running. We grew. Again, we started with 1 with Kings County. We picked up Tulare County, picked up Fresno County, and as we kept on growing, in 2006, there was another grant funded that allowed for copying us to do other farm worker van pool projects. There were applications from Ventura, from Napa, from Monterey, et cetera, all but the one from San Luis Obispo fell apart. And what they ended up doing was coming to us and saying, Ron, would you please take over our project because you're doing such a great job, we don't want to do it ourselves, can we be a part of you? So through a series of JPA MOUs, we kind of cobbled together an agency that we still ran as CART, as CAPTA. And so in 2011, we became so large that it made no sense for this to be run out of Hanford. We basically split it off, made a brand new agency called CalVans, California Van Pool Authority. It is made up of COGs because, as you know, city and counties don't get along together all the times. So we basically said, let's make it a COG because that's where planning functions are held and that's where we should have the decision makers. So you'll see nothing but COGs there. There's 11 of them. Merced joined us last month, and there's cost nothing to join, cost nothing to leave. Basically, we're self-funded, but that allows us to provide a van to employees and our businesses in your area. So you don't have to be in the area to get a van, but you got to be going to or from the area. This is where we serve now. The dark green is the agencies that are in membership. The yellow are areas that still get benefits. So even though we serve 17 counties, because remember, SACOG and AMBAG are multiple counties, we actually have 17 members, even though we have 11 members represent 17 counties. We also residually spill over in other places. We have a Mendocino van that comes out of Napa. We had about 18 vans in Yuma this last winter, another 60 in, we had 15 vans in Imperial, another 60 in Yuma. They came back recently. We run out of LA, San Luis Obispo. So we have a big footprint. We aren't a state agency. I keep getting accused of being one. We are not a state agency. We are just simply a van pool authority formed as a public transit agency, which is important because you want to be able to get our numbers into NTD to make money for you as an agency. Our mission from day one, provide van pools for individuals as cheap as we can to as many as we can, serving rural America. Because as you know, this valley here, we have Fireball, Mendota, Huron, Kerman, on and on. Those cities do not have regular bus service. If you have a bus going there to a large city, it's once a day, it's in the morning, it comes back at night, It does lifeline service. If you want to go to work, forget that bus. It's not going to be there. So we try to give anybody who wants a van as long as they have a decent driving record. So, and that's been our mission. That's what we're doing, and still recover our costs doing that. This is our growth over time. You'll see that bump right there. That was a gas spike of like 4 years ago. But aside from that, these are our regular van pools. These are the farm labor vehicles. You notice the seasonal bump, 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 bump. That's the winter, summer, winter, summer. This year, there was no drop. We actually have more vans out right now we had last summer because half of our van pools that agricultural workers use are receiving vouchers from their employees, which are allowed under the federal government. Because we're a public transit agency, the employer can provide vouchers to the workers. The workers can come to work in that van just like you would a bus going downtown. Huge for the growers because it separates them from that as a going and coming law. It makes them actually give to the workers a free ride legally without any downside. Again, our track record is straight up. It's just that's the way it goes. We are the largest public fleet. There are other larger fleets. LA Metro has a large fleet. San Diego has a big fleet. We're the largest public fleet of van pools. We're about 450, 460. I've ordered 100 vans last month. We should be about 550 next year. And we'll keep on growing. Misconceptions. Van pools are the responsibility of the private sector. By golly, why do you do van pools? You're supposed to do buses, dial-a-ride vehicles, trains, trolleys, whatever, but not van pools. That's for the private side. They're not part of the public fleet. You know, and it's unfair to compete with the private side. They require ongoing support. You guys know, you start a van pool, you're going to have to feed that thing for the rest of your life. You know, it's never going to get out of that sucker. And then there's no benefit to the local agency. Why would I want to do that? I'm so busy doing buses and dial-a-ride now. Why would I want to do a van pool? Well, in the MTD reporting system, there are 4 modes. There's actually more, but there are 4 main modes. There's bus, demand response, van pool, and intercity bus. And so a van pool is one of your modes of transportation. If you operate it, you have to provide 4 things. How many people rode on it, how far did the van drive, how long did it take driving, and where it went from and to, for all those modes. If you report those modes, it actually benefits you as an agency. Private van pools do not report that unless they work with a public agency to push the numbers through. What does that do for just this one county? This is Kings County. I could do the same thing for Tulare, the same thing for Fresno. There are currently 176 vans enter or leave Fresno County today. But for Kings County, there are 14 fixed route buses, there are 771,000 trips, a 7 dial-a-ride, and 86 van pools. The 86 van pools increase the number of trips in Kings County by 50%. Those trips would not occur on the other 2 modes. Those are trips that go to different areas. They usually leave out of Hanford, heading out to one of the prisons or going to Fresno. We have 107 pullouts. When you do transit, you're talking about pullouts. How many pullouts you got in the morning? That's, you brag about pullouts, you know. So Kings County has 107 pullouts. Where did the 86 go? I have no idea. There are GPS in those vehicles. It's up to the driver to know where they go. If they don't need them, they turn them in. They owe me money to run them. So the 86 vehicles are well managed. The other 14 are conventional. Who we comply with. California Vehicle Code mandates what a van pool is and what a driver has to be. A van pool has to have placards on all 3 sides that say van pool. It has to have in the vehicle a record of services done for the last period of time. So the CHP pulls it over. He wants to know, has it been serviced, has it been maintained? The driver has to have in that vehicle, the driver in the vehicle has to have a record that he's got had a DUI or drunk driving in the past 5 years. He signs a declaration of that effect in the vehicle. The vehicle has to have first aid kit, et cetera, et cetera. It has to be serviced every 6,000 miles or 6 months. The driver, that's pretty much it. With that in tow, a van pool is up and running. Under the PUC, a van pool is exempt. We don't have to stop at railroad crossings. We still get tickets for that, and we have to fix those all the time, but we don't have to stop at railroad crossings because a van pool is exempt under PUC. A vehicle going to and from work, nonprofit, 10 to 15 people, is not covered under PUC. State Department of Labor. State Department of Labor is an interesting animal. That is a mirror of the federal, but it's the state basically says that a vehicle going to the field, and if you were farm workers here, and pick a Maria. Maria said, you know, I'll take you all to work. I've got a good car, let's all go to work. She puts you all in the van, you head off to work, and you get stopped by a friendly guy along the highway who's a CHP officer, and with him is a guy with a suit and a tie. Suit and a tie guy says, Maria, can I ask you some questions? Maria says, yes, yes, I have nothing to hide. I'm helping my friends, we're going to work, I'm just collecting money for gas. He would say, Maria, are you collecting money? Maria says, yeah, I'm collecting money for gas. He goes, oh, you're collecting a fee. Well, no, I'm collecting money for gas. No, you're collecting a fee. He would give Maria a package about an inch thick, and Maria at that point would be, have just broken the law that requires her to be rich as a farm labor contractor if she collects a fee, transport people to an agricultural industries. Period. It's 3 years in jail, a $10,000 fine. It's a criminal charge. If Maria is found guilty of that, she cannot sponsor people in the United States anymore because it's a criminal charge. We had one of our drivers who was pulled over and was cited for this reason. We had to go to court after fighting between the Secretary of Housing and the DOL. We finally won. The Secretary of Labor, Attorney of Secretary of Labor basically said that our drivers are collecting a fare, not a fee. For that reason, it was thrown out of court. We were on our road again, and we were fine. I called the head of the Department of Labor, says, okay, I'm on a motorcycle with a sidecar, and I collect $1 for gas. Ron, you don't like the law, change it. That's the law. So if you're a farm worker, going to work is difficult. Now Maria gets this all done and goes off to work, and she's all good. As soon as she registers as a farm labor contractor, and she goes off, and she's fine, so she goes down the road. A month later, she meets another CHP officer. She meets another guy in a white suit and tie. This guy is from the Federal Department of Labor. Maria says, I'm okay, I've got everything going, I'm good. Well, wait, Maria, let me ask you a couple questions. One, how much are you collecting? And so if Maria's only covering her costs, she's okay. But then she says, let me ask your passengers how much they make. So if the passenger's making minimum wage, the passenger cannot pay anything of that minimum wage to get that ride to work. Mitzvah requires that you're made whole for the time you work. And this goes back to the grapes of wrath, you know, the Job stuck in the farm back there where they can't get off the family farm. The law requires that if you're made whole for minimum wage, you cannot pay any of that money for transportation. If you do, that's a violation. That's $8,000. $5,000 fine goes to the grower. $3,000 goes back to pay the people back for the ride. We're through all that for the most part. Federal Department of Labor, we basically spent 6 years battling with them. The feds now have, I have a letter, it took 6.5 years to get the letter stating that we are okay. Our driver does not have to pay because of in-kind services. The vehicle is a carpool. This is huge because under Mitzvah or the Federal Department of Labor, there is no such thing as a van pool. They don't exist, but carpools do. A carpool is not defined as to size, and a carpool is people coming together with a coffee cup up on the dash paying to get to work. So we basically took our van pool law and wrapped it around the carpool law and haven't looked back ever since. So we basically do that well. This is huge. This is a window we drive through in California. Basically, and that's why I stayed a public agency when I made CalVans. If you're a public agency operating a van pool, you are exempt from farm labor laws. And this is out of the code. A public agency under powers given by city and county operating a van is not a farm labor vehicle. And that's huge because there's about 40 pages before this section about what a farm labor vehicle is. Class B license, all the inspections, everything else. Who are workers? Mostly state and federal workers, for the most part. And they go to rural trips. Why? Because the state in its infinite wisdom stuck prisons in all the small areas in these states. So you have prisons all over in small areas. And the prisons were sold with the idea that people are going to come there with, you know, psychiatrists and all these high-paid people will come to Corcoran, come to Avenel, come to Wasco, come to Delano, and make the town prosperous. Well, the prisoners came, and the prisons came, but the others didn't come. And so all the people I just talked to lived in Hanford, Visalia, Porterville, you name it. They don't live in the small areas. So how do they get to work? They have to make that trip, 45 to 50 miles every day. The state provides $65 per month for commute to offset that. And so that's why we have a lot of demand from state correction officers. We currently provide 35% of the trips to Pleasant Valley State Prison in van pools. We have van pools going to 10 of the prisons within the area from Wasco down to Delano. And that's been huge and been one of the big drivers of what we do. Federal workers. Federal workers basically get $245 a month. It was $125 before then, it was $235. If you're a federal worker, you get $245 a month for van pooling back and forth. Why this, where this came from, a little aside, Washington, D.C. transit was really going down, doing a lousy job this years ago. The Washington, D.C. system needed help. Well, they passed a law that basically raised the amount of money federal workers could get for commuting to work. That instantly helped Washington, D.C. Metro, and overnight the ridership jumped all over the place. Now Washington, D.C. is doing fantastic because they put this in and gave federal workers the cost. True story. They expect greater level of service. You know, you talk about buses, you have your choice riders. They expect things. They expect level of service. They expect level of, they're kind of a pain in some respects, but they expect, you know, the level of service that farm workers don't expect. And now, we also have 24-hour van pools. One of the things we've been able to put together in the last 4 years is that one van is shared by 3 groups. It means I can give you a van for about half the cost if you have 3 separate vans. So you'll see a van at Walmart. That van may leave every 8 hours going to work. So they'll show up at Walmart, drive the van to Delano Prison, park it. 10 minutes later, the guys get out of Delano Prison, come back, get in the van, go back to Wasco, or back to Hanford, or wherever they're going. That happens 7 days a week, 3 times a day, forever. That one van will travel 8,000 miles a month. Huge numbers. There's up to 45 people who share in that van. So there are 3 vans in there, but 3 van pool groups in one van, and I send a bill to one main driver who breaks it up among the 3 vans, and they all pay. Our problem with them is they have too much money in the books. Their rate is so cheap that the driver collects a little bit extra to make it good. Well, they end up with $2,000 to $3,000 in the books. We have to say, don't collect any more money. You give them a free month off or something because it's so great for them. Students, we have a growing number of older students, as you know. It's been a hard sell in some areas. The needs exist in rural areas because if you live in a rural area, there's no bus to go to the college. You basically work with other people. A lot of times you go with people that don't have a license, don't have a decent car, this, that, and the other. Hard to organize. Success story in Shafter. 4 years ago, I met with the city manager of Shafter. I met with a group of individuals that needed a bus to go to Taft College. I was brought in to kind of save his bacon because he was being toasted for a new bus to run from Shafter to Taft College. Buses are expensive. We met with a group. One of the ladies there said, if I don't have a bus to go to Shafter, my daughter, who's going to graduate this year, will not go to college because A, I won't let her ride with people in this town because nobody has a license or insurance. B, we can't afford to get a car for her, so she won't go to school, period. Another gentleman off to my left was in a wheelchair, Giovanni, and he said, I can't get there. I need help. I can't get there. We need a bus. So after about an hour, I said, you know, you guys have a lot of passion. If you guys are willing to step it up, I'll work with you, and we'll end up doing a van pool. Why, what do you mean van pool? Trust me, it'll work. So we ended up forming that van pool. A little bit of heavy lifting at first, but I can tell you, Giovanni, after 3 years, graduated from Taft College, now went on to Bakersfield. The young lady I spoke about, I met her mother at an outreach at Fresno State. That young lady went for 3 years on the van pool to Taft College, transferred to Fresno State. I think she's graduated now. But the mother was saying, I remember I was at that meeting. It was a great closure to the story. We now currently have 3 van pools. Last year, what happens every year now, the advisors send to the van pool drivers a list of people that are going to be going to college next year to get them a seat on the van. We have an outreach at the church down there about a month before school starts, and we all kind of get together. And last year we were short a driver. Remember, the driver has to be qualified. Well, we're short a driver, so one of the mothers went back to school to be a qualified driver to drive the 3rd van of students. The hard part was getting the students to understand this isn't a bus. Your driver is not your mother. The driver will throw you off. You've got to pay your fare. If you don't, we'll throw you off. And so after the first year, now it works fine. I mean, it's been slick and it's going great. I'd like to replicate that in other areas, but it's hard. Teachers, mostly rural trips. They don't get any subsidy. And what's interesting is when you and I were growing up, or the older people in the room, our teachers lived in the community where the school was taught. Your teacher was down the road. Well, teachers don't live in those communities anymore. They don't live in these small communities because of the gangs, because of the violence. They're just like correction officers. They'll live in Fresno, Clovis, Visalia, and they'll commute out to the city. Then when the school's done, the day they come back again. They like to van pool because of the savings. The dilemma where they have is their hours, but some of them that use the van pool do it because they can tell the administrator, I'm sorry, but I can't stay after today. I got to catch a van pool. I'm out of here. And it works. The farm workers. Now, as I said before, they can't form van pools on their own. A farm worker group cannot be in a van pool. And that's what drove me back in 2001 to basically push the envelope, because up until we stepped up and provided a van pool, a farm worker could not do a van pool without being registered as a farm labor contractor legitimately. Now they do it. They do it. What happens is I'll have 3 brothers. I'll go get 3 Astro vans, or I will work for the grower, and I will basically have my brothers all drive these vans, and we'll kind of be working for a contractor. And everybody pays. It becomes a money-making thing for us. We all charge you to ride in our vehicle. And if you complain to me, I won't pick you up tomorrow. I mean, that's as simple as that. I don't pick you up. Other stories I hear is, well, the last week of the season, I get the check to give you the money. I don't pick you up at all. I just take the check and go home. How can they do that? Well, they can't. There's nobody to complain to. They're so happy to ride for 11 months out of the year. That last 11 weeks, that last week, they just forget about it and they go away. There really is no recourse, and so that's kind of when we stepped up. As fines I mentioned, huge fines. Distance, they normally travel 45, 50 miles. We did a survey in Arvin, Fireball, and Orange Cove. Three sizes, 3,000, 6,000, 9,000 population. Why? Because I was told early on, Ron, you're helping meth addicts, you're helping drug dealers. You know the farm workers, they're a bunch of druggies. What are you doing this project for? There's no reason to be doing that. Well, I basically ran a study, and the average farm worker is married, has 2 children, owns their house, has been here longer than 5 years. Half of them have a dog. They travel 45 to 50 miles to work. They work 6 days a week, like 87% are in agriculture. They don't have a public transit. They get there in whatever means they can. If they don't have a license, they still drive. If you got to feed your kids, if you got to put food on the table, you're going to drive. Don't have insurance, you're going to drive. If you got to pay for the essentials, insurance may not be one of the essentials. One of the things they do, they'll buy a car from you that's got 11 months left on its registration. And they can drive the car for 11 months without ever registering it, so they don't have to worry about insurance. But anyway, that's the average worker. That's who we deal with. And the lack of licensed vehicle doesn't stop them. In our typical 15-passenger van, there are probably 3 licensed drivers in that thing. The rest of them are not. Most of them are undocumented, but they've still been here. They still live here, but they're undocumented. They work seasonal. What happens is that you see the raisins being done one part, you'll see the oranges being picked, you'll see the cotton being pruned, you'll see the lettuce in Huron. Well, what happens if you don't have transportation, you bounce from place to place, but you can't get to that job that's 40 miles away, 50 miles away. You're stuck. Kind of hung up by that guy that I told you earlier that's going to rip you off to get you to work. If you have a van pool, and what happens in the van pool, they form a family of sorts. The group as a group decides, hey, I hear there's work over here, let's go over there. You end up with that van pool, you move from place to place. You're not tied down. We have van pools that in the wintertime go to the Delta out of Delano or out of Parlier. They're actually at the Delta working. We have tree planters that in the wintertime are up in Chico planting trees. They go up for the week, they stay there, they come back into the week, everybody's happy. There's no limit where they can go. And so what happens is they work year round. They don't work just seasonal. And the van then gives them that opportunity. And the work sites is huge. As I said earlier, we currently support 80 vans that came out of Salinas Valley last November that all moved to Yuma and Imperial. All those van drivers were working for one of 6 companies in Salinas Valley. The company shut down in November because they can't grow lettuce and broccoli in Salinas Valley. The growers, the equipment, the harvesters, they all get on the highway and they all head to Yuma. When I was asked to do this, I said, man, that's kind of really sticking my neck out on that. So the first year we did 1 van, second year we did 15 vans, last year we did 80 vans. But what happens is that the people living in Monterey County, employers, said, Ron, we have a hard time getting labor down there because we have to get people, they work 4 days, they don't come the next day, our profits suffer, we don't do very well. And then we had workers saying, I can't get down there. I mean, I'm going to go on unemployment. So what we did was we basically reduced unemployment in Monterey County by getting people down there. We increased the revenue to growers in Monterey County. So we reduced the unemployment roll and increased the revenues to Monterey County. So even though we were in Yuma and Imperial, we basically assist them. Now, why did we go there? Because they lived in Salinas, so my MO is if you live or come from the area we serve, we'll support you. Now, it's a stretch, I agree, but it worked well, and everybody in Yuma gets a free ride via vouchers. Okay, the driver approval, as long as you have a Class C license, it can be from any state, Texas, Arizona, Washington, it's got to be a state though, it can't be a Mexican license. But if you have a valid license and you're 25 years of age and you have 2 or less points, a point is typically an average ticket going down the road 55 miles per hour. If you're 21, you have to have a clean record. I did this for the colleges. So if you're 21 years old, have a clean record, you can drive for us. No DUI, reckless in the past 5 years. The Class B physical is huge. Now remember, back to farm workers. Farm workers don't go to the doctors very often. How many farm workers do we have that went to the doctor the first time in their life and said, hey, I have high blood pressure, they're diabetes. Now they can still drive, they got to go to the doctor and get medication, get treatment. It's surprising how many farm workers go there and say, I don't know how to high blood pressure. And so they go back to the doctor, get a doctor's appointment. We don't pay for that, they pay for that. They end up getting medication and they're fine. They completed an agreement. The agreement for the general van pools is you're going to go to and from work. You can stop by on the way home. You're not going to use personal business. You can't do bad things. If you do, you could be taken from you. If you do something really stupid, we're going to sue you as well if we get sued. We go through, the farm worker agreement also says you can't do the bad things that the Department of Labor doesn't want you to do, so that's in that agreement as well. If you do those things, we don't know you kind of thing. Orientation walks you through the program, how everything all works. We can do this in about a day. I had a lady come in the office, nicely dressed, and she was just so hot that, she wasn't hot in that respect. She was upset. What should I say here? But she was on fire, and she started out by saying, what do I have to do to get a van pool? I said, well, ma'am, what do you need? She says, well, do I look like a bad person? I said, no, you look like a professional lady. She says, I was turned down. What do you mean turned down? She said, I was turned down, and it turned out house was going through foreclosure. She'd gone to Enterprise to get a van. Enterprise turned her down because she couldn't get a good credit check. So she was just hot. And so she went and she said, well, what do you guys do? I said, well, we don't do a credit check. I said, as long as you have a clean driving record and we can get you a physical, you're fine. Are you sure? I said, yeah. So I sent her down to DMV to get her H6, which is her driving history. I then arranged to get her Class B physical in town. We have a walk-in clinic. And by 3 o'clock, she was out the door with her van. She's still in a van. She's one of my best customers. I mean, she's the kind of you want to have, and you want to go out and tell the world about what you do. But true story. So we can do it in one day. And farm workers, a lot of farm workers now, they'll actually come in on Monday and say, I need a van for tomorrow. Well, we keep them on file, so we go, okay, everything's current. We'll pull a new MVR for them, and if their Class C medical is current, they have a van tomorrow morning. So they're almost like, it kind of frustrates me because I like them to call ahead of time, but they don't because they got a call yesterday. They got a call today by their employer. We need you to be at work tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. Driver support, bilingual staff, except for me. We match riders. Our website has a place where you can go to register your van. On there, you, the driver, can basically accept email requests for seats. And they email you, you say, I got a seat, you lock it in, away you go. Most people don't call our office because everybody's on an Excel spreadsheet, so I can quickly sort city, town, van, time, and then I end up with these 3 or 4 people. I call them and say, Mary, I got a person who wants a van pool to someplace. Are you open? Do you have any seats? And Mary says yes or no, and then we call you back and say, I'm sorry, there were no seats open, or there was one open. We call you back, but there's no seats. We then try to get you to start a van pool yourself. Replacement vans, we basically bring you a van. So our MO is if your van goes down, we'll be there. If you go to work and say, hey, my van got to work, had a flat tire, we'll fix it before you leave. If you have issues with your van, we'll be there in the morning before you leave in the morning to go to work. Remote service, all of our vehicles are serviced out in the field. We don't have any central place. We don't bring them in. Since the very beginning, we basically contract with a contractor who goes out to Ventura, to Napa, to wherever, and service your vehicle in the field. So you may be at your house and this truck comes up and picks your vehicle up, changes all the tires, changes your oil, away you go. And so we do that. We only bring your vehicle back in if it needs tires or brakes or something. Otherwise, our claim to fame is you can drive it as long as you want. We'll never be around you unless it breaks down or something. The 24-hour call, the 4 offices I mentioned, there's somebody there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that's on call to respond if you have any questions to us. Then we have you listed numbers. You can call anybody, any place, any time, and we'll get to you. So worst case, I'm 2 hours from anybody, so we'll be there. Our vehicles don't break down very often, so I can tell you that very seldom do I get a call saying, I'm along the freeway, I need help. That's a rarity. We have GPS on our vehicles. You call and say, I'm broke down on the freeway, come help me. Well, we know right where you are because there's a dot on the map showing where you are, so we roll out of there. Another big sport is use of vouchers. As I said, half of our ag vans, we have 180 ag vans, half of those right now are using vouchers where the grower provides a free ride to the workers. Now this is huge because when I started this project 11 years ago, I was kicked off the property of growers. I was literally escorted off the property. We don't need you, we don't want to talk to you. If we have anything wrong, we sure don't want to know about it. So please, the door's right there and leave. And so we had a hard sell. And then the non-ag workers said, Ron, the growers ought to pay for the ride. Why are we paying for it? Growers ought to pay for it. I said, well, do they pay for McDonald's? Do McDonald's pay for their rides to McDonald's? You know, a grower's no different from McDonald's if you got to get to regular work. So we've come full circle. Half of our vans are paid for by the grower using vouchers through the federal system that recognizes vouchers to public transit. So we come full circle on that. We're a public agency. Because you have to have a Class B physical, it allows us to go in the pull notice program. That's a program where once you're in there and you get a ticket, we'll know it within 2 days. So it's huge for us. We can pull you out of there. You have to have a unique PIN to start our vehicles. Every vehicle we have is like a dial-a-ride vehicle. If you've seen those, it has an MDT on the dash. You have to put in your fob. It's either a fob or a keypad, but you have to put your number in there for it to start. It'll light up, but it won't start until you actually say who's in there. I get a report 8 o'clock every morning of every single van out there, how fast it went. I can quickly sort. If you're one of my bad children, I'll pull your van from you. The weekly speeding reports are emailed to the main driver, so if you're one of our van pool drivers, you'll get a report each week showing what your people did, so you can self-police that. We send a summary out each month of everybody in your van by name, who was speeding, and speeding means you're going more than 10 miles over the speed limit. I can't make you drive the speed limit. You get run over by all the cars behind you, but I say you got to stay under 10 miles over the speed limit. Hard sell, decel, the vehicle has a computer on there. I can quickly sort all the vehicles and see who was doing jackrabbit starts and stops and pick out the bad driver because that's the one who's going to get a rear-end accident on me. And then the fuel card requires the same PIN. If you want to get fuel, it's the same PIN number you used to start the vehicle with. The monitoring, again, I see you have to log in. Maintenance, we get email alerts, so all of our vehicles are tied in so that our guy doing the service goes up to the cloud, is able to look at each vehicle and say, gee whiz, this needs service. What happens, there are 3 service windows. If your vehicle it's every 6,000 mileage service. So at 5,000 miles, the vehicle is due. He can start servicing it. At 7,000 miles, it's overdue. So there's actually a window he opens up that shows green, yellow, and red. If it's yellow, it's 1,000 under the target. If it's red, it's 1,000. It's a dark orange, it's 1,000 over. If it's red, it's beyond the 7,000. He has 2,000-mile window with which to service a vehicle. So he's able to sit back there in the morning and kind of group all the vehicles together. So when he goes to Avenel State Prison, there's 25 vehicles there. He could service 5 of those, then jump over to Pleasant Valley State Prison. There's 35 vans over there. Service 3 of those, jump over to Kalinga State Hospital, do 4 over there. And so in the course of a very short distance, service a whole bunch of vehicles. So he's able to do that and save money, make money in order to cover the cost. And the check, this is huge. We'll show up to your van and say, you got a check engine light. You'll say, what are you talking about? Well, we'll actually get it before you get it. We actually, because we're tied into the computer in your vehicle, we'll get a prompt saying you got a lean fuel mixture before you even see the light on your vehicle. Conventional billing for the regular van pools, what we do on them is we send you the bill on the last week of the month. It's due by the 15th. If you get it to me by the 15th, you enter a drawing for $500. Sounds like a lot of money, but actually we did that because it was either that or fine you. So I said, let me give you $500. And so what's cute about this is we did this years ago, and it instantly changed our receivables. We used to have people dragging in, it's due by the 15th. Oh, I'll get it. We've had people that would hang you out as a driver. I'll get the check, I'll get checked to you. And so by the 30th, there's still no check, and you're still waiting for Betty to get her check into you. Meanwhile, Bill and Susan sent their check in on the 1st. So I get this payment with a check that was submitted 3 weeks ago, and so you think, well, my account must be good. I sent the check 3 weeks ago. I'm sure it's good. We send them to the bank, and 2 of them bounce. They do. So we basically said, if you get them by the 15th, you'll enter a drawing for $500. You'd be surprised how many people got thrown overboard when we did that. So, and then on top of that now, we roll that over. If we don't have a successful drawing, because we draw your number out of a hat, and if you aren't current, we roll it next month. Well, when it gets to $1,500, it really heats up. So we have that. Parallel to that, every vehicle, remember, has a computer. So when you go to work in the morning, you email me up to the cloud how many riders you have. So one of your tasks is when you get in the vehicle and all your riders are in there, you send me a message that goes to the cloud that says you have 8 riders. Do that twice a day. That's how I get my entity numbers. If you don't get a $500 drawing for the second drawing. So I have another drawing that if you do this, you'll enter a drawing for $500. And so again, it rolls to $1,500. Huge, because it's solved all my problems without a fine or a penalty. The van pools for the ag vans, remember the ag vans they're out there. I don't know where they are per se, but I know they're out there. I can find them. They pay weekly because if they don't, they could get behind and then it's really ugly. So what we do is on Sunday night at midnight, my cloud generates a report for me that summarizes for the last 7 days how far your van traveled, summarizing the miles per day and the miles total. I open that up and I do hocus pocus with Excel magic, and I make that number that you sent me for how many far the miles went. I multiply that times 90 cents, and off to the right of that, I come up with a little matrix that says if you have 7 riders, it's this. If you have 14 riders, it's this. So I do your bill for you on how many riders you have. So then I take this matrix and I push it back out to you by Monday evening. You have the bill sitting on your dash, your unit, on your MDT. That's huge, because when the Department of Labor guy stops him, he wants to know, how do you figure your bill? Show me. Well, he opens up the window. The window there shows the bill we sent him, and that's how much he collects. And so it breaks it down. If he has 8 riders, the more riders he has, the lower the bill is. So that's incentivizing him to get the van full of people. And that's huge, because I don't have to. Then he basically collects the money, or the vouchers, sends me that sheet he's been filling out all week long that says where he went, what crop he picked, who rode the van, what days they rode, and that comes back to me with his vouchers. Okay, how does the program benefit the region? You know, it benefits individuals. I mean, it's a huge benefit, as you can tell from individuals, but how does it help you guys? By lowering the cost, we can provide more van pools. The higher level of van pooling helps everybody. Get cars off, most of these trips are peak hour trips. Reducing VMTs and vehicle trips is huge now. Air quality, we're all AB 32, we're all getting beat up. A lot of the counties are saying they got to reach AB 30 limits by 2025. Lower the number of vehicle VMTs. You can't do it. They'll never be able to do it because the valley's not shrinking, the valley's growing. And I don't see anything that will let us get there with what we have right now. Remember I said van pools are viewed as, boy, a loss leader? Well, no, van pools are very profitable. I can show you where van pools generate $25,000 and $26,000 a year in found money. This is the NTD data we send in. So what I do is, because remember, it's all in the cloud, it's all computers, I can separate by UZA, and that's Fresno UZA, Hanford, these are small, large, but they're all UZAs. This is the data I send in, passengers, miles, lane miles, and that's what generates money on the back side. Because remember, the NTD is basically the clearinghouse for spending that big lake of money in DC. All your taxes, 18 cents, goes to DC, and then there's a big lake of money, I say, and then it all gets ladled back out based on how many trips you report as a transit agency into them. The more trips, the more money. So obviously, these trips make money. Now, the other thing we do, since we have all this data and it's in Excel format, I thought, why don't I just re-crank it out and give it to you as a county, because now you can apply with AB 32. So what I do is, Fresno County, they can report to CARB that they had a reduction in lane miles of 19 million miles. They had a reduction in passengers of 475,000. Each county then can take this as their bag of tricks, and Kings County does not have to do any more today because they currently comply with the requirements because of the number of van pools. Am I correct on that, right? Okay, yeah. There's somebody in Kings County. I want to make sure I don't step myself. But because there are so many van pools in Kings County that we met our mandate for VMT reduction and greenhouse gases. What does that do? Well, this is the revenue I've generated the last 3 years. So in 11-10, I generated money for Kings Rural Transit, my hometown, of $604,000 because they're a small UZA. We made this 5 of the 6 stick points that small UZAs get. Each stick point's worth from $130,000 to $180,000 a year. In year before last, I generated money for Fresno Air Express, Kings Rural Transit, and Porterville to the tune of $1.5 million. I've not seen a dime of that money. Porterville has $395,000 more in their 5307 pot than they had the year before. Fresno had $557,000 in their pot for use of their transit, and Kings County had almost $600,000. Last year, ending October of last year, when you got the report from the feds, $2.7 million, and that shows where it goes. Remember that chart I showed you where I'm growing? Well, this reporting is 2 years late. So the reporting into the NTD is 2 years earlier than this number here. So the fact I've grown dramatically in the last 2 years means that 2 years out from now, I will have dramatically big numbers in here. And I'm trying to go back to these counties now and cities and say, you know, can we just share the money 50-50? Can I do a subrecipient agreement with you and move it into my side and pay wages or whatever? Can we just be happy and I'll make you money, make you money? So that's kind of what my next roadshow is going to be. But it's going to continue down that path. Now, what does it do? In Hanford, we provide 1 van per 1,000 population. We have about 50,000 in Hanford. We do about 60 vans in Hanford. That's figure 1 van per 1,000. If I look at Fresno and say, well, let's just do 1 van per 2,000. I mean, if Hanford can do 1 van per 1,000, because what's its claim to fame, Fresno ought to be a whole lot better. So if I just do half as much vans per 1,000 in Fresno, then I can generate 265 vans. Each van generates $22,000 a year in 5307 funds. Remember that van I said that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? That generates about $78,000 a year into fax, that 1 van. It costs the people in that van $19,000 a year to operate it. So if you gave that van, you said, you guys here, just, I love you, drive it. Yeah, just, I love you, take my card and don't, just drive it. You would end up still netting, Fresno, you'd net about $3,000 or $4,000 profit on doing that. So now same with Bakersfield, it's about $32,000 per van per year. For Visalia, Tulare, it's $23,000. A lot of that depends on how big your system is and how much these numbers boost your numbers on the bottom side. Now, Merced just joined us. Why did they join us? Merced joined us because 28 van pools will generate for them $988,000 a year in stick funds. That's $35,000 per van. So if a van goes to or from Merced, UZA, that I can report, and there's a 28, I've got a formula cranked up that basically backs into what the feds would give you, and I can share that with anybody. Same thing, Porterville, 31 vans gives them $98,000. Salinas takes more vans. But again, that's money that they would get to operate their public transit. What does it do? What's the benefit on this whole thing? Well, van pool miles, we drove 9 million miles last year. 3,000 trips from here to New York. 3,000 trips from here to New York. We've not had a fatal accident. We did not have any major injury accidents last year. Insurance loves us, but that's 9 million miles. In 11 years, we've gone 49 million miles, and that just simply takes 0 now to what we are now and divide by 2. VMT reductions last year, 90 million, assuming there are 10 people riding every van, that's 90 million. Trips, 2.25 million trips. A lot of peak hour trips, and if you were on Fresno or wherever you are and took 10 cars off in front of you, how fast would you travel? Fuel, 5,000 gallons. Now that also negatively impacts gas stations, but it helps the economy, or helps the air. Oil changes, based on every 6,000 miles, you got 15,000 oil changes. Tires, assuming every 45,000 miles, you get 8,000 tires, etc. Oh, cars, 600 cars in a year. If you figure that every 150,000 miles you're going to replace a car, we've saved 600 cars from somebody. And then antifreeze and 44,000 tons of greenhouse gases. I say if you see one of our vans, picture 2 dump trucks behind that carrying black stuff in them. Hopefully they're covered because it'll blow out in the road otherwise, but they're behind the vehicle. Now, I like to put it in dollars. The fuel is $68 million at $2.50 per gallon. Oil changes, assuming at $25 per oil change, you're looking at $2 million. And tires, assuming at $1.25 per tire, you're looking at $5 million. And the total down there is $158 million of indirect savings. And it's true numbers. I mean, this is $158 million over the course of the project that I didn't save, but you as a participant in the program saved. The average participant saves $11,000 to $15,000 a year being in our program. Now, it's a hard sell to them because they just say, I didn't save any gas, I'm not giving you a program. But when they save insurance, they don't replace the car, et cetera, it becomes more like $300 to $500 a month is what they save. A lot of times all they see is a $40 gas, but it's huge. The value for tons of ROG and NOx and stuff is about $5,000 to $10,000, depending which air basin you look at. But assuming it's $5,000 a ton, that's about $1 billion savings in dollar value for the amount of black stuff we took off in that same period of time. I'm having a hard time finding somebody to give me money for that, but I'm still pursuing that because I know somebody, the governor will call and say, hey, Ron, we have this green money we want to pay you. how we compare with private van pools. The private van pools are great. They're fantastic. They're out there. I can't be every place, and they serve a function. For instance, in LA Metro right now, they generate $7 million a year in 307 funds because they basically have, I think it's 450 vans going to LA Metro, and they generate $7 million a year in transit money. Sandag generates $11 million a year in transit money, and they have about 715 van pools going down there. So it's huge. And so, again, and how they make that work is Sandag, I think, gives $350 or $400 a month for every van pool. Remember, why wouldn't you? Because the van pool makes you $20,000 a year. So by all means, give them $5,000 a year because you're going to make money on the backside. So both of them, LA Metro gives $400 a month, Sandag gives money, and so that makes a huge number. The problem with it is that you have to qualify. And so when I talk to 51 Org in the Bay Area, they're frustrated because 30% of the people that they send to them get turned down because of poor credit. Now, I guarantee if you went to Farmersville, Mendota, Arvin, the number's not 30%, it's more like 90%. So my argument is that there's a place for us, and I think we need to be at the table, and public transit agents need to pick up van pools as an element. I'm not saying, don't make me do all of it, but the public transit agencies ought to say, you know, van pools are really a great thing. We ought to start it. Start with one and grow it. I'm still trying to sell that. Again, replacement van, on-site maintenance, 24-hour bilingual support, report transit funding, and the GPS monitoring. Those are the huge things we provide. Private vans can't do GPS monitoring because of the law. They don't report into the NTD, and they don't do the GPS thing. And you have to take your vehicle in to get a service if you're in a private van pool. Liability. Okay, what's all this cost and liability? We spend $900,000 a year in insurance. When I started this years ago, I was paying $4,000 per year per van to get $2 million insurance. I currently pay $1,300 a year to get $10 million. And on top of that, I got $5,000 med pay. Now, what's med pay? That's no big deal. Well, med pay is huge. If you're in one of my vans and you slip coming out of the van, my back's hurting me, and you're a farm worker, they don't have a doctor. So they go open the phone book up and find all these guys that want to sue me. Because you ought to sue this guy. Well, if I have the med pay, I can say, go to your doctor. We'll take you to the doctor. We actually pick you up, take you to the clinic. You get your, I feel okay, I'm good. We'll call you each week. How are you doing? Good. I'll pay the bills. I'll pay the bills up to $5,000. I can pay the bills. Don't have to open a claim up. The last 3 years, we have not had any even inkling of a lawsuit because we pay the cost. If it's over $5,000, open a claim up. We do that. Now, the interesting is our insurance company pays 30% of the premium goes out for claims. They literally make 60 cents in the dollar from us in profit. We have people knocking on our door wanting to sell us insurance. And again, the participants are volunteers. These are not my employees, they're volunteers, which helps me liability-wise. With that, you go to our website. We basically, you can log on there, a lot of stuff about us. That's my name. I made it with 5 minutes to spare. I thank you for letting me share. As you tell, I love this project. I'd be glad to talk to anybody. It's my passion. I want to retire next year, I tell people, but before then, I'm glad to talk to you.